In our previous episode, Lin arrived at the royal archives, and before long ended up teaching an arrogant prince a painful lesson. After that little detour, he stepped into the lightning element dungeon and made it upgrade. The surge of energy that followed didn't just stay confined to the dungeon, it also rippled across the palace. The scene shifts inside the palace, and an elderly man with a full head of white hair suddenly springs to his feet. This was none other than the emperor himself. Without delay, he rushed to the archives and demanded to know what was going on. Princess Yao quickly filled him in, noting that the dungeon had just upgraded. Interestingly, the emperor wasn't bothered in the slightest that Shun had been roughed up. He simply remarked that a promise was a promise, and should be honored no matter what. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added that Divine General Lin should be allowed to enter the dungeon as much as he wanted. Shaking his head in disappointment, he suggested from now on, all of the prince could use some toughening up, and promptly decided to ship them off to the military for some well-needed discipline. The scene once again returned to our boy, who had just received a system prompt confirming the dungeon had upgraded, and now he's entering hell-level difficulty. As expected, the thunder within had grown even more intense, with crimson lightning streaking across the sky. Moving steadily through the storm, our boy noticed a glowing gem flowing mid-air. A quick scan with a detection spell identified it as a lightning gem, which offered permanent 50% resistance to lightning damage and even a chance to unlock a lightning-based skill. As he kept walking towards it, the lightning became more fierce, but not enough to penetrate the skeletal armor. Then, without wasting a second, Lin grabbed the gem and activated it. Almost instantly, wild energy surged toward him. Bolts of lightning rained down from every direction. Though the pressure shattered his skeletal armor in an instant, however, the lightning didn't seem to harm him. Instead, they gathered behind his back, almost like our boy just chugged a can of Red Bull, and next thing you know, a massive pair of wings appeared behind him. The system then announced he had gained a new skill called Lightning Wings. It granted him the ability to fly for 1 minute, with a 10-minute cooldown. Surprised but pleased, our boy couldn't help but marvel at the speed. Once airborne, he shot upward like a bolt of lightning. The wind roared in his ears as he zipped across the sky, almost like he was teleporting around. Still, he hadn't forgotten the main objective, which was to obtain the elemental shard, the key, and whatever core items the dungeon had hidden away. Just as he was scouting for the final boss, something zipped toward him from behind. He dodged instinctively, only to catch a glimpse of what attacked him, which turned out it be a lightning ape. This creature also had a pair of lightning wings, and the detection spell revealed it also had several special traits including lightning element resistance, reduced physical damage, enhanced speed, and increased vitality. With a roar, the ape lunged. Reacting quickly, Lin cast Withering Curse. What followed was massive red shackles shot through the air and locking the creature in place. Then a red skull symbol appeared above its head. At that moment, the skellies on the ground opened fire from a distance, pelting the beast with all sorts of ranged attacks. Then came Soul Flame, drifting ominously toward the ape and sending it crashing to the ground in pain. Now grounded and exposed, the ape had little chance. With big bright smiles, the skeletal berserkers welcomed the ape with their massive axes. Watching from above, he wonders why didn't the ape stop him from obtaining the lightning gem earlier. Suddenly, something clicked in his mind and he quickly turned around. He flew back toward the spot where the boss had originally appeared. Peering through the crimson lightning, he spotted a peculiar plant. A quick detection spell confirmed it to be the lightning grass, an item needed to awaken the thunder god. Carefully, he cupped it in both hands. Now all he was missing was the key. Meanwhile, his trusty skellies had wrapped things up nicely on their end. The system notification chimed in just then, confirming he had defeated Lightning Ape, gaining him nearly 3 million experience. And along with it, several lightning shards as part of the loot. And our boy would need 5 of these shards to fuse into a full crystal. The dungeon wasn't particularly hard, but just as Lin was preparing to leave, a sudden explosion from above caught him completely off guard. Whatever it was, it came down like a meteor, blasting him and his skeletons backward. When the dust finally settled, he caught sight of something embedded in the ground, which turned out to be a massive sword surrounded by red lightning. All of a sudden, the entire dungeon had gone eerily quiet. Cautiously, our boy stepped forward. After a moment of hesitation, he reached down and yanked the weapon from the ground. A blinding surge of lightning shot through his vision, and fragmented memories began flashing through his mind. In front of him stood a towering figure, Lin instinctively knew this was the Thunder God. Across from the god stood the barren Beast King, which our boy remembers vividly, so fearsome that even both of his teachers together couldn't win against him. The two then charged at each other, and the Thunder God swung the giant sword, creating a powerful sword energy. Yet with just a casual swipe, the barren Beast King dispersed the attack like it was nothing. Then it lunged onto the Thunder God and began tearing into his neck and eventually the rest of his body. Lin could hardly believe what had just happened. He couldn't believe the mighty Thunder God died so miserably. At that moment, the sword in his hands began to tremble, almost as if it wanted to speak. Lin felt the sadness inside the sword, also understanding what it was trying to say. He made a promise to the sword, saying that one day he would find a way to awaken its original master. The sword shrank down in response, settling gently in his palm. The system chimed again, informing him it was the Thunder God's sword, once wielded by the fallen deity, and now the key to the Thunder God's palace. With that, Lin tightened his grip and reaffirmed his promise. With that, he was teleported out of the dungeon. There, waiting patiently, stood Princess Yao, and behind her, the Emperor himself. Lin immediately recognized him and gave a respectful bow, but the Emperor, smiling pleasantly, waved it off and said there was no need for formalities. He commented how he had so many stories about Lin, but hadn't expected the famed divine general to be so young. He added, almost admiringly, that the future truly belonged to the young. Lin, modest as ever, responded humbly. The Emperor then brought up the earlier scuffle involving his son and, to Lin's surprise, offered a formal apology on behalf of the royal family. He added that if Lin ever needed anything, he could go straight to his daughter, adding that so long as it was within the Empire's reach, they would make it happen. Lin, on the other hand, hadn't expected the Emperor to be this straightforward and this reasonable, so repaying the respect, he responded politely that if the Emperor ever needed his help, he'd be glad to offer it. The Emperor laughed heartily, remarking that the royal family would be honored to count Lin among their closest friend. With that, he turned to leave, saying he'd leave the room to the young folks. Princess Yao, cheeks slightly flushed, quietly thanked Lin, but as dense as we expected from our boy, he responded saying there was no need for thanks, adding that he'd simply accomplished what he came for. Still, he mentioned he'd need to run the dungeon a few more times. Before heading back in, he casually informed her that her people could likely enter in about 3 hours. Yao didn't seem to mind his tone, and she just waved with a smile and agreed cheerfully. Over the next few hours, Lin dove headfirst into multiple dungeon runs. With his newly acquired lightning wings, his efficiency had skyrocketed, allowing him to blaze through each attempt with ease. Time slipped by quickly, and before long we hit the 3-hour mark. Stepping out of the final run, he casually mentioned he was done for now. Princess Yao, who had been waiting patiently the whole time, suggested it was time to visit Grandpa Li, and she figured if anyone knew about the ancient texts Lin was after, it would be him. The two of them made their way back to the archives. Yao called out for Grandpa Li several times, and in the blink of an eye, the world around them shifted. They soon found themselves transported deeper into the archive's inner sanctum. When they opened their eyes again, they found themselves in a quiet chamber. An elderly man sat there, teacup in hand, calmly enjoying his drink. Yao ran over with a bright smile and quickly topped off his cup. She then introduced Lin as the very divine general she had told him about earlier. Grandpa Li chuckled, admitting that his memory hadn't completely gone soft just yet. Still, inwardly, he couldn't help but be surprised, remarking that Lin was younger than expected. He recalled Yao saying that Lin had reached the divine general at only level 37, which now felt even more astonishing. After a brief rundown from Yao about what Lin needed, he turned to the shelves and carefully selected a stack of books. They floated down slowly, landing neatly in front of Lin. He remarked that with Lin's status, he had full access. He could read whatever he liked for however long he wanted, which Lin thanked him in response. What followed was a long period of quiet study. Lin scanned through all the books, while Yao occasionally added more water for both of them, though her eyes often drifted his way, lingering just a little longer than necessary. Grandpa Li noticed it all, of course, and simply stroked his beard with a knowing smile. As for Lin, he couldn't help but marvel at the depth of the archive's collection, noting these ancient records held more information than even Xiajing Academy lacked. Among the entries, he even stumbled across accounts of Zhang Yi and even a legendary mage, Shu Yan, he had met before. However, he still found no leads on the dragon inside the eternal trial grounds. After several more hours, Lin finally closed the last book. Yao asked with a hopeful smile if he'd found anything useful. Lin returned the smile and admitted that there was a wealth of information here with things he'd never seen before. However, he shook his head slightly and trailed off. Curious, Yao asked what was wrong. Lin explained that despite the rare content, he hadn't found what he was really looking for. That surprised even Grandpa Li. He remarked that if the Imperial Archive didn't have it, then it must be something truly obscure. He leaned forward, asking what exactly Lin was after, saying maybe he could help directly. Lin revealed that he wanted to know more about the barren land, and, more specifically, about the dragon boss located on the top-level core area of the Eternal Trial Ground. Hearing this, Grandpa Li's expression shifted dramatically. A moment later, he gripped his robe with enough force to make the fabric wrinkle. Seeing the reaction, our boy was certain Grandpa Li definitely knew something. Taking in a deep breath, a book bound in chains materialized. He pulled it out slowly and confirmed that the answers Lin wanted were inside. He added that it wasn't the sort of record just anyone could see, adding that not even Yao had the clearance. Lin accepted the book, then thanked him while promising to remember this favor. Grandpa Li simply smiled and stroked his beard again. Cracking the book open, Lin quickly realized the dragon in question even had deep ties to the barren lands themselves. It was revealed that the dragon had even slain numerous barren beasts in the past. Lin was shocked, but at the same time he realized these barren beasts weren't invincible after all. However, a person would need absolutely absurd level of strength to even try to pull it off.